Hey, this is Eric Bredvig with IGN, and we are here with the man who should need no introduction, Mr. James Cameron, who's here at the Electronic Entertainment Expo speaking about the game for your upcoming movie, Avatar. Now, we've heard a lot about Avatar, but very little has come from you. So what about this movie do you think makes it a natural tie-in for a video game?
Oh, well, first of all, it's in 3D, and there's this opportunity to do a 3D game, which is amazing, and Ubisoft really stepped up on that. But I think when you see the film or you see the game, you'll see that we've got a complete world with these amazing creatures, amazing characters, weapons, vehicles, the whole thing. I mean, it's very, very rich for gameplay, and the game has fulfilled the promise of all that.
There's 3D tech, obviously, in the upcoming movie, and there's 3D tech here. How are the two different?
Different. Well, we did some live action photography, which uses stereoscopic cameras, but the same in the sense that for the greater portion of the film, which is photorealistic CG production, we're using some of the same authoring. We used game authoring tools. We used a program called Motion Builder as our real-time render engine for the capture and real-time virtual camera that we were using for production. We'd shoot it, we'd cut it in that, and so there was actually this kind of weird convergence where we were doing a lot of the same things that Ubisoft was doing, and we found out that they could take our assets, our CG assets, and use them directly. They could take our motion that we were capturing and all that. So part of that was just the production side. Once you're in CG, stereo is stereo. We had some technical discussions about where they were going to put the convergence plane and how they were going to treat the stereo, how much depth they were going to use, how they were going to deal with foreground objects and all that. And we'd already been working in stereo at that point for about a year and a half. So I like to think we were a little bit helpful for them, but they mostly made their own decisions, and they made a lot of good decisions. So the playing the game in stereo is actually a lot of fun. It doesn't hurt your eyes. You can do it for hours, which I guess is the idea.
Definitely. Are you worried that anything's going to be lost in the translation to a video game, especially given the fact that the video game is going to be many people's first introduction to the Avatar franchise?
Well, I don't think that's real. That certainly wasn't a concern for me. I think the studio might have been more worried about that than I am, because I think people know that video games are video games, movies are movies. They're different media. I think of them as different media. The Avatar game is very different than the Avatar movie, even though it inhabits the same universe. It's got the same creatures, but it doesn't have the same characters, not the same story threads at all. But you'll recognize all the aircraft and the vehicles and the weapons. But in the sense of the hardware and some of the environments, it actually goes well beyond the movie, because they had to create additional stuff. The movie didn't have enough diversity for the game. So in a way, the two are separate media that inhabit the same universe, and I'm perfectly comfortable with that.
Now, that's interesting that you mentioned the two separate mediums, because gaming has increasingly become more cinematic, and now you're making this movie, which is said to be one of the most visually engaging movies of all time. Do you see a future?
Don't hang that on it yet. Let's let people see it first.
Well, there's lots of rumors floating around with that. Do you see a future where the two mediums
are good? I don't mind.
They have been so far. Do you envision a future where the two mediums actually converge and we end up going to movie theaters for interactive entertainment?
I think I've imagined some scenarios where you can do interactive entertainment in a movie theater like setting, and I can absolutely see that happening. But you'd have to. I think the idea would be that you have game players in the theater, but there's a much larger group of players that are kind of onlining in, and it becomes kind of the mecca or the central focus for the game. But the game is widely distributed and is much larger than just that group. I think digital movie projection just creates this interesting venue that can be used for all kinds of things, from live events that are coming in, live events in 3D, whether it's sporting events or maybe dramatic events, movies, and why not games? Nobody's done it yet. There was a lot of talk back in the late '80s about interactive movies. I think we're kind of there. It just didn't take the form that everybody thought, sort of sitting in a movie theater. I think the games will become so cinematic that they're almost indistinguishable from movies that you can interact with. And at some point, somebody's going to say, "Hey, wouldn't it be great to get together with 100 people and do it on a screen 40 feet wide? Wouldn't that be cool?" And now you're at an interactive movie, but it just didn't do it the way everybody thought it was going to happen.
Now, we've seen, especially at E3, a lot of movie makers are coming into the video game world. How closely did you actually work with Ubisoft? Because a lot of times we see the filmmakers working in name only.
Yeah, no, this wasn't a name only kind of deal. I mean, we started off, where they came to us, they pitched their ideas. We talked a lot, hours and hours about what I thought would work, what I thought would feel consistent with the movie, and I was constantly kind of pushing them, not away from the movie, but to create their own storyline so that the game had its own life. I think they might have been even a little bit surprised by that, and there was just such a rich exchange that I would say, every month or so they'd bring back new stuff that they developed. They were constantly sending me, story threads, new characters, vehicle designs, things like that to approve. I'd mark them up, send them back. So there was definitely an interaction, but I don't want to overplay it. They did 97% of the work, because that's what they're good at. That's not what I'm good at. When I'm making a movie, I do everything. I operate the camera, I work on the visual effects and the animation and everything else. But that's my forte, and theirs is the game. So I think it was the right amount of interaction. I didn't try to tell them their job. I didn't try to micromanage it. I encouraged them to be as creative as possible. I reined them in when things didn't quite fit maybe there were things they hadn't thought of that I was thinking more down the line for sequels and things like that I had to kind of steer it a little bit away from some of the ideas, but that sort of thing. And to me, that's the healthy give and take that is possible if you do this thing right, which is you do it from the beginning and you give them, not 9 or 10 months to do a game, but 2.5 years.
Yeah, a lot of licensed video games often suffer from short development cycles. They're underfunded. Most of the money just goes towards buying the license.
Yeah.
They
spent an awful lot of money on production, well beyond the license fee, and they had the time to do it right. In fact, they even had the time to sort of go down one path and choose another path after that, because the first thing they showed me was a first-person shooter, and I thought it was really cool. You could shoot a bow and be a Navi, but then there was this sort of consensus. Everybody started talking about this idea that, if you don't see yourself as a Navi, you don't know how cool you are as a Navi. You don't get a strong sense of yourself as a character that's part of a culture. So they switched horses and went to third person, which I thought was pretty brave, and I can't imagine anybody else doing that partway into the development cycle. But we had the time to do it, and we had the time to make that decision. So that's a perfect example. There would have been a first-person shooter out where you had a pair of blue hands, and you know what I mean. The larger kind of cultural side of it would have really taken short shrift.
Well, it sounds really cool, and we're all excited to check it out on E3, and thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us.
Okay. Good talking to you, Eric.